What role do you think writing skills and communication skills and speaking skills play in a person's ultimate success, especially in these times of uncertainty and exponential change?
Well, I'll give you a small example and then a larger example. I talk about it in the book. When I was in college and graduating and couldn't get a job, I applied to, I did a written application to a company that was a private equity company that was looking to hire an MBA, and I was an undergraduate. It was a very kind of esteemed one. And then I followed up and I left a voicemail for the partner, because it's what you did in those days. Like, you apply and I want them to remember me. I send them a voicemail. A couple of weeks later, I get a call and I get an interview, and I enter the interview process against MBAs who had much more experience to get this coveted role. I don't ultimately get it, but I go all the way to the end of the process. And in my very first interview with the partner, I was like, I'm really curious, like, why did I get the interview? And he said, I like the sound of your voice and the message you left. He's like literally,
I remember that story.
Shot, right? And so, and I was like, wow, like who knew that whatever I said left an impact, but just somehow the way I presented myself. And I tell the story in the book, even though I didn't get the job, it kept me in the game until I did get my dream job, because just to come that close on something that was really ambitious, quite frankly, gave me a lot more fuel for the fight than applying every day to all these jobs I thought I was qualified for, and nobody would even give me a chance. And so obviously early on, I learned that, but I've also, this, have spent my career in sales and business development.
Yes.
And to your point, there comes a time in every career where just out executing the next person is not enough to muster the resources, get the support, get the financing, get what is needed, to propel your team to the next level, or even propel yourself to the next level. And so I think that we can argue whether it's written or not. Amazon has perfected the art of making people write very concisely their ideas, which really forces a synthesizing of your ideas. Presenting yourself and your ideas in a compelling way is the key to unlocking resources for almost anything. By the way, not even just unlocking resources as a CEO, unlocking culture, unlocking a shared sense of values, unlocking customer love. These all come from the way we present our ideas, and not just our ideas, who we are. Like, who we are actually matters as much as presenting our ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We live in a world where people don't even want to just hear the stories about what you do. They want to hear the story of who you are and why they would want to work with you. So it's just so essential to almost anything: team building, fundraising, what have you. I think the last thing on this point, as I said, Amazon has perfected the art of synthesizing. Many people know about the famed Amazon sort of, instead of a PowerPoint, like write me a 5-page document, because it's going to force you to synthesize your thinking, and we get to have a really nimble discussion. That's one type of great communication. The other one I really, encourage people to think about is think about the communications, particularly speaking and so on. Not just in big settings, but in small settings. Like, people really remember, you want them to remember everything. They're going to remember one or two or three things. So even thinking about, the opposite of the Amazon construct is, how do you bite size and give people, even in small groups, just simple ways to put it in, to just remember something.
That reminds me of, I wrote a book. One of my books is called Talk Like TED. It's about the TED style conferences and TED style presentations. And I recall talking to the organizers of TED. I've interviewed a lot of great TED speakers whose presentations have gone viral. And one of the most common question they get is, or the most common observation they get when they invite people is, how can you expect me to distill 40 years of experience into 18 minutes? And the answer is, you don't. You pick one or two things.
Yes, you land the plane on one or two things. And so, by the way, just on this last point, right, like I said, like, what are the one or two things you want people to remember? And so while I wouldn't call myself like the best writer of a memo, though the book is a great way to learn how to synthesize your thinking, to your point, like, I am a huge believer in things like all of these new templated slides. Like, I love beautiful AI. It forces you, like, the template will simply not let you, fill it with text. It's just impossible. And so, yeah, I think this idea of like learning to talk like Ted is a pretty good idea.